All right, we are live for the Mike and Mario Show Friday edition. Looking forward to connecting and finding out what's on your radar. We're going to do a little bit of a recap throughout this week, as well as our thoughts and projections moving forward. But before we do that, Mario, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Mike. Nice to see you again. I hope you've had a good week.
Definitely. It's always good to connect, and the week was good, and it was very good because I was witnessing the within a 48-hour time frame. I think it was between Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday, in particular, silver. Doing a 60 cents, 70 cents. I'm like, how high can we go? And there's a lot of enthusiasm in a stacker community, and so it was good to see that because it gave people hope that the manipulation is coming to an end soon, but. We still got a long way to go, but I hope everyone's doing well. Just checking in. Definitely throw some thoughts or questions out in the chat, and we'll definitely jump on those. But let's kick it off with talking about the turbulence in the markets this week. So, what do you want to talk? What you want to talk about first?
Yeah, like you said, it was nice to see silver do well. I think it was on Tuesday. Early on in the day, it wasn't doing much. And you just thought, oh, it's more of the same. But then it just, I think it was early when the U.S. came in on Tuesday. It just zoomed up, broke some key technical levels, and kept going up the next day and yesterday. And right now, it's kind of stabilized a little bit, but it's doing really well. It's outperforming gold, and even gold on Wednesday broke through key resistance at 1830.
Yeah,
and in the general markets, though, we're seeing some very interesting moves, especially in the sectors that have been the darlings of the markets, like Peloton, which is a company I heard of, but didn't even know what they did. But I found out they just make exercise bikes, and they were valued at $60 billion. And I spoke to a friend of mine today. I went for lunch with him actually on Wednesday, and we used to work in the city. And we were talking today, and he said at one point Peloton was worth more than all the major soccer or football teams in the world.
Really?
And he said even at where we are now, I think that it's worth about $6 billion. He said that's still too much. Why would you value an exercise bike company so much? And then you've got ARK, the ARK fund still dropping a lot.
Yeah.
And recently as well, we've seen economic numbers getting worse. And yesterday, Netflix as well came out. And Netflix, I looked at the chart. It looks horrible. I think it was almost $700 last year at one point, and now it's like below 400. And the FANG stocks are coming under pressure. We've seen continued weakness in the bond market. Even though today the bond market has rallied a little bit. But so what we've had is beginning of the year where the NASDAQ has dropped about almost 10%, where the 10-year yield has gone from like 1.5 to around 1.8. It got up to 1.9 a day or two ago. And we're seeing also mortgage rates go from around 3% on average last year for the 30-year mortgage in the US, and now it's like at 3.6. So there's definitely the markets are concerned that the Fed they're talking about hiking and doing tapering, but as you said earlier, maybe you want to bring up that chart about what is the Fed really doing.
Right. What are they really up to? Because and as I mentioned before, I even ran a little bit yesterday. In my opinion, they're stalling. They're talking the markets in preparation, or they're basically speaking to forewarn the markets it's time to prepare or brace for whatever. But while their actions show the complete opposite, because they're still adding to their balance sheet to the tunes of 100 billion monthly, with very little signs of it slowing down. So what are they really doing? I think they're stalling. They're trying to buy some time. And once again, that 90-day window is what I think has been set, because they've set March as the time where they're going to start or hopefully be done, but they haven't even started yet. So it's like, what's really going on?
Yeah, and they announced tapering back in November, and if you look back to November, that that line there, that chart seems to be just continuing as usual.
Yeah,
If they were tapering, you'd think that that chart would be plateauing
you're
and
right.
then becoming flat in the beginning of March or end of March.
But
Maybe
that's
they're
not the
gonna
case.
no, and maybe they're hoping there's some. I don't know, like you said earlier, geopolitically with what all this pressure on Russia
Hmm.
and China, looks like the West is trying to gang up against Russia and China, saying they're aggressive.
Right.
But what are the countries that have invaded the most other countries in the last 20 years? Well, the NATO countries, isn't it?
Correct.
We invaded Afghanistan, we invaded Iraq, bombed the hell out of excuse my French,
No, that's the truth.
bombed the hell out of those countries. We sent NATO. It was a NATO operation in Libya.
Hmm.
Um, we've disrupted Syria, and now we're trying to give trying to tell say that the Chinese and the Russians are aggressive.
Right. 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 Over countries that are in their neck of the woods. Like Taiwan is off the coast of China. Ukraine is on the border of Russia, and the US on this side of the world is telling them what they can and can't do. And so, yeah, we know what this is all about. But it's just interesting to me that at the beginning of the year, the markets are responding in the sense that the Federal Reserve has. So with all this volatility in the stock and the indexes, it's to me signaling that either the Fed talk is causing all this uncertainty because they're still accommodating the market. So what's really going on there? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the ultimate agenda?
Mm.
And I think literally so the three things that concern me the most of what I think the Fed is stalling in hopes of something jumping off first is a military conflict, which would then possibly be the trigger for a cyber attack, because then we can say Russia, cut off the systems, the banks or whatever. And then the third one would be the actual response to all that, which would probably be a market collapse. And they can have an excuse to use one of those areas there as a reason why it didn't work. We were starting, but they really didn't start. They were talking about starting, and voila.
Yeah,
It's a trillion coming.
because the problem is that they're cornered now because inflation is out of control, or the consequence of all the inflation they created.
Right.
And so they've had to talk a lot of talk about tapering, raising rates, and they can't really do it. So yeah, like you said, all these geopolitical frictions or saber rattling against Russia, talking about Russia invading the Ukraine, which I don't think is realistic. And yes, they could even use a false flag, say that the Russians and the Chinese used a cyber attack to bring down the whole financial system. But then you look at the World Economic Forum, who all these guys work together with. I saw Xi Jinping had a virtual meeting with Klaus
He
Schwab.
kicked it off on Monday.
Yeah, so I see that prior to COVID, Putin used to go every year to Davos. So they're like all working together.
Right.
So that's why I think it's all theater.
Right. And then also, before we move forward, just shine a little light on that tweet you mentioned earlier. Let me pull it up here about some of the things we're not being told about Ukraine from the Russian citizens that are residents within Ukraine, and some of the concerns possibly. So share with us what made you post this.
Well, there's a YouTube channel that I highly recommend. It's called Bald and Bankrupt. The guy's name is Benjamin. He's an English guy that travels mostly through the old Soviet Union, the old republics. And he was in this area of eastern Ukraine March last year called Donbass. And they've been having a civil war since 2014 there between breakaway ethnic Russians and Ukrainians. And that's what's going on. And as you can see there, the red color, that's where 80% of the population or more are like ethnic Russians. So what I think is happening there, and these are not Russians that have come now, Russian soldiers. These are people that have lived there for generations.
Yeah.
And they want to break away from the Ukraine, and it has been like that since 2014. So I
Right.
think what's happening here is Russia, Putin, the Russian Federation, is trying to help these people. And yes, they might send forces there, but they're not. It's not like they're invading. Like if you look at the western part of the Ukraine, they don't
Mhm.
want that. They're
Right.
just trying. And if you look at the Crimea, there, the island
Mhm.
that sticks out there, all in red.
Right.
Is it any wonder they had a referendum and said they wanted to be part of Russia? And
Mhm.
that's what they did. But in the West, we're told that Russia invaded Crimea,
Right.
but
Right.
they didn't. They actually had a deal from the old Soviet times to maintain uh, about 30,000 Russian troops there. So
Yeah.
the Russian troops were there already. They in 2014 or 15. They didn't invade the Crimea.
Mhm.
So in the West, we're told, oh yeah, Russia is aggressive. They want to invade the Ukraine, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Right. And that was a main point of bringing that up is just because we're being told that Russia, they're loading up their borders with troops and they're going to invade any minute. And then even I think it was last week or earlier this week, U.S. intel says that there's a false flag event being planned by the Russians within the government. I'm thinking like, okay, they're telling us a
Mm.
false flag is occurring. Something's wrong. And then also, everybody here is aware of the fact that all the whoever's in power. I don't even know the political leaders in Ukraine, but they're Western puppets. So they were all reinstated over the last 5
Yeah,
to 7 years.
it was under Obama that they fomented this coup,
Hmm.
and they got a Western guy person there, Western regime.
Yeah,
Before that, they were quite friendly to Moscow. And I think it was Victoria Newlands. I think it was a big. She worked for Obama, and she went there.
yeah,
And yeah, it was purely created by the CIA. That revolution was it called the Maiden Revolution or something? It was a color revolution in 2014.
yeah.
And the thing is, the other thing people forget, what does NATO stand for? Well, it's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
Hmm.
It's not the Black Sea Treaty Organization. It's like we don't expect Russia to be interfering in Cuba or Mexico or Canada.
Right,
So I can understand why the Russians don't like NATO meddling in the Ukraine.
right. Very true. And then,
It's for the Russians and the Ukrainians to sort things out, not
yeah, let
NATO.
me. So just going back in history, I've typed in Obama and Ukraine. And so here's a speech from 7 years ago. And the title is Obama says NATO must help strengthen Ukraine's military. So even during that time, it just shows that the goal was to utilize NATO to help Ukraine. And so Ukraine was receptive towards that help because they had already had somebody installed that would allow NATO to
Yeah,
come
just
in and
after
help.
the coup in 2014.
Yeah.
And I think
So
there was
yeah.
a scandal about Victoria Nuland. Someone had a tape of her talking about how they were gonna uh, bring down the government there in Kiev.
Yeah, very true. All right. So for those tuning in, definitely appreciate you. Hit the thumbs up button, show your support for the channel. Throw out some topics or whatnot you want us to share our 2 cents on, and we'll keep the show moving right along. Lots of other things worth talking about. And so let's jump into definitely want to find out some updates on this. So England ends all, you see what it says, mask mandates, work restrictions. So far, how's that received? And will it be permanent, or is this a setup for perhaps something else
Well,
to save Boris Johnson's butt?
you never know. Some people argue, and in a sense, they're correct that Boris Johnson's in trouble because of all the stuff that's been leaked about the parties and
Hmm.
everything else. So he's trying to gain some popularity with the people that are fed up with all the restrictions. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who want to keep the restrictions, the
Hmm.
general public that are scared. And I saw some headlines today that a lot of the unions are against this. Some of the schools are still making the children wear masks,
Hmm.
even though they don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
So, uh, and of course, like you said, they could always pop another variant on top of us and say we have to go back. But one thing we noticed though is that the medical advisor to the government, a guy called Chris Whitty,
Hmm.
and his deputy, we don't see them anymore. They kept coming every day trying to scare people about the variant and the cases.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, so we don't see them anymore. The deputy guy called Van Tam,
Hmm.
he resigned last week, and he just been given honors by the Queen. They were knighted, both Chris Whitty and Van Tam, so they became sirs,
Yeah.
which in my book doesn't mean much. But
Yeah.
be as it may, why would you resign after getting a prize like that?
Right.
And the other guy, Chris Whitty, we don't see him anymore. And even in the papers, I'm seeing articles saying, "Oh, should the newspapers stop publishing all the data every day with the charts about the
Hmm.
cases?" And people like me and others have been saying this has been scaremongering, just focusing every day. But now they're starting to backtrack.
Hmm.
So who knows? It's encouraging, but uh, I wouldn't get too enthusiastic about it, but it's
Right.
moving in the right direction.
Right. So we'll get to that super chat in 1 second because I want to bring this up as well. Because one thing that concerns me is that they're all countries are, they're flip flopping right now based upon their political heat they're experiencing within their country. Because right beneath you, France vaccine passport law poised for enactment. So as of this upcoming Monday, if I'm not mistaken, this thing goes into full effect. At the same time, the people have been on the streets quite often the entire 5, 6, 7 months now protesting this. No media coverage whatsoever, but Macron is still moving forward, it looks like, with passing this thing out there, and that's just right beneath you. So each country is going to have the different response. And then I think also Austria starts theirs, I think, on Monday as well, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's just amazing that all those countries they're having different responses to
Yeah,
the same problem.
Italy as well is quite draconian.
Yeah. So yeah, that's very concerning. And so over here on this side, we haven't had much noise in regards to those things because every state is different. There's a big resistance here in the US so far. So hopefully it remains and grows stronger. So let's get to this. Chris Kahn, man, appreciate you, man. Says, when the bond market implodes due to excessive money printing, how high will interest rates go then? Thanks. Mr. Manico, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, as Chris maybe knows, when bond prices go down, yields go up.
Hmm.
So if yields go up, that means interest rates will go through the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what would happen in a free market. That's what would happen. But right now, the bond market still gives the Federal Reserve and the central bankers some credibility.
Right.
But if there was a loss of confidence in the bond markets and the central banks, you could see interest rates. I think in Greece in 2011, 12,
Hmm.
their yields went up to almost 50%. So
Hmm.
that means interest rate. Basically it says we're not going to lend you money anymore, and if you want to borrow money, it's going to cost you 50% a year. So that means that we don't trust you anymore. So that's what will happen to interest rates.
Hmm.
If governments can't borrow, no one will be able to borrow.
Yeah.
So it's not just government. The mortgage rates are going to go through the roof. The whole thing will just implode. Right
Yeah.
now, they're still under control. Yields we've been seen today or a bit earlier before I came on with you
Yeah.
that the 10-year yield has dropped about 7 or 8 basis points, which is quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's still up almost 30 basis points on the year.
Yeah. Here is I want to might as well touch on this since it's up here. The bond market is calling the Fed's bluff. And so I was reading through this a little bit, and the guy was talking about how based upon the current response, bond yields or what I think is not pricing in the Fed's jibber jabber as of right now. So something's wrong, type of thing. So I'm figuring,
Well, yeah, I kind of disagree with him
yeah,
because bond yields have gone up like quite a bit
yeah,
since January 1st, from 150 to like 190 recently.
hmm,
So they are pricing in rising rates from the Fed.
yeah,
And I mean, I see what he means, because in the past, uh, every time you saw the stock market come off and correct, the economy slow down,
Mhm.
bond prices would rally, people would buy bonds and yields would go down.
Yeah.
But I think it's changing, because now we've got CPI running at 7%. We've got PPI in double digits.
Mhm.
So I'm not too sure about that.
Right.
So
Yeah, so that's where I'm still trying to learn, because I mean, the more I dive into this stuff, understanding the inner workings of the financial system, especially with the bond market, is
well,
something
and
that
the other thing
I
I would
agree.
say,
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt you,
go ahead.
that the bond market is partly controlled by the Fed. So how can a market that's manipulated by the Fed call the Fed's bluff? Uh,
Right. Uh, so speaking of, so let's get. I saw a question out there real quick. So as always, make sure you guys throw out some questions. We'll try to jump on them. And I saw something about crypto, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. Here's something. MS says, "What cryptos are you two holding other than the top three?" So let me pull up the little crypto chart real quick, and share my thoughts on that. So I like to look at projects that actually have a real world use case, or something that I think can disrupt the current financial order. So let me pull up, and I'll share with you if I can find my page real quick. Mario, do you have any
well,
projects that you?
the cryptos that I hold, uh, Hive,
Yeah,
Steam, DTube, only because I post my videos on those platforms and have been doing it for like years.
yeah,
I started posting on Steam in 2016.
hmm
Uh, yeah, so I don't hold any Bitcoin or Ethereum. The only time I have Bitcoin or Ethereum is when I'm converting my Steam or Hive or other coins into fiat. I go through Bitcoin or Ethereum.
yeah,
I do have a fund that I put some money in back in 2016, and
hmm
that's done quite well. It's a closed end private fund though.
yeah,
It's called Bitcoin Capital 3, and it
hmm
was actually started by Max Kaiser and the other guy, I forgot
from
his
Bank to
name.
the Future.
Yeah, Bank to the Future. That
Yeah,
that's my exposure. I put $1,000 in that, and it's I've gotten more than that back in dividends. That's the
yeah,
only way you get your money out.
right.
But they still valuing the fund now at 25,000. But it's like I think their major investment is in Kraken, the
hmm
exchange.
Yeah.
So Kraken is supposed to go public this year. So maybe I'll get a nice dividend later on this year. Who knows? But I don't hold the top three. I used to like EOS,
Yeah.
but I got out of that because it just hasn't seemed to like
Do much.
gained any traction, even though it's a good it's not like how can I say,
Mhm.
proof of work. It's a proof of stake, but proof of stake crypto.
Yeah.
And but it's very quick and it's scalable, but for
Mhm.
some reason it hasn't gained, because in cryptos and all and blockchain, in this space, you need popularity, right?
Right.
So if you start a project and it becomes really popular, that's what drives the price.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that the project is good, like you said.
Right. I started to, look away from EOS when Dan Larimer decided to all of a sudden just step down, because he was the brains behind the operations, as well as Steam, and I think a couple other projects. So once he stepped down, really made me question things. And then there's not been much action, because there's not been much development on the actual blockchain itself. And of course, there's been so many other ones that came out, but just a couple that always I keep an eye on frequently is. I definitely like Dot. Polkadot, I think, is going to do some different things, because it's an Ethereum style
Yeah.
ecosystem. So I like that one. I've been a Litecoin fan since day one, and I like Cosmos because it's similar to Polkadot. Those are platforms that's looking to offer the same things that Ethereum offers. So those are my more
Yeah,
interested
I
in.
have some. You just scrolled past Tron.
Yeah.
I have some of that. I earned that through my Steam, my Steam platform. I don't know why. I don't really know what they do.
Yeah.
But I think you said, didn't you get some Shiba Inu a
Oh, yeah,
few
it's like
months
it's
ago?
literally $50, and I think it went up to 150. Now it's back down to $50, I think. So not much activity there, but I'm a Ethereum Classic fan as well, just because I think my suspicion is that if they continue to push Ethereum to its limits to try to get it to scale, not do all the Ethereum 2.0 stuff, and if something breaks, then they're going to end up going back to Ethereum Classic. So I think that's a long-term bet. May not pay out, but it wouldn't hurt to continue to hold Ethereum Classic, just because that's the original code before they forked and created the Ethereum version, which is becoming institutional coin for the most part. So those are just some projects I keep an eye on, as well as a lot of the newer ones. So anyway, so feel free to throw out some questions, some thoughts. We'll jump on it. You got a couple more stories to touch on, but here's another interesting subject matter. And I'm curious, I wonder, is anything like this happening in England? But U.S. banks closed record number of retail branches in 2021. Wells Fargo shutters the most. And so, of course, they're blaming it on, lack of employment or lack of employees, fear of variants or whatever. But I think this is the health situation has been a great cover up for what they wanted to do initially, which was dial back on having all of these retail branches, which basically provides people ways of, if there was a bank run, it puts them in trouble, but yet it limits people's access to their own cash because there's going to be less branches in your neck of the woods to go running to if there is some type of banking event. So
Yeah, it's
no, go ahead.
happening here as well, and it's been happening even prior to 2020.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a few things to look into there. The first one is they want to save costs. They want to push people into online uh, banking
Yeah.
and using cards. The other one is cashless society as well. Like you said, if you don't have access to cash, it's harder to take your money out of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there's still ways to take. One way to is not to put your money in the bank, right? And how do you
Right.
do that? Well, when you get paid, you exchange that for tangibles, be
Mm-hmm.
it gold or silver or anything else that you
Right.
really want to hold outside the system. So yes, I think that's why this is happening. Costs and they want to control everyone digitally, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to piggyback on that more, here's a little tweet from someone that I came across, and I touched on this yesterday in my little rant. But as of midsummer, IRS says by mid 2022, the only way to log into your IRS.gov will be through ID.me, an ID verification service that applicants have to submit copies of bills, ID documents, as well as live selfies via a webcam or mobile. And so same thing with Social Security as well. You have to log in via the ID.me. So pretty much all the government entities that you receive something from, in order to log in at some point, you're going to have to use the ID.me, which once again further pushes everybody towards a digitization of their entire lives.
And they'll probably be asking for COVID
proof
certificates soon.
And that's the thing. Like so it's consolidating everything down to probably a single app or a single platform like ID.me that will be the middleman between the people and the government. And if you don't participate, then you won't get access. And that's so to see that coming is very disturbing. But it's like, okay, yeah.
Here in the UK, it's called HMRC, Her Majesty's Revenue and Custom.
Her Majesty's, okay.
Yeah, HMRC.
Yeah,
it used to be called the Inland Revenue, but they changed it. I have like a username and a password when I go in to file my tax online, but I haven't seen them come out and say that you're going to have to take a selfie or things like that. Maybe they're not as efficient as the IRS, which is probably a good thing.
Oh my goodness. But it's on the way. So yeah, I'm looking up there. Let me see. The first time hearing that.
HMRC.gov. Yeah.
Yeah, HMRC, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, Her Majesty. So, yeah, I haven't heard anything about the Queen lately. What's going on? Do people still, like, with all this chaos going on, are people looking at her differently, or do they have acknowledged the crown, or what?
Most people are behind her here, I would say. But yeah, I guess when she goes, it's going to be His Majesty's Revenue. So they don't have to change it.
Yeah.
Because it'll be her son.
Her son. All right, let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think up until the 90s, she didn't have to pay taxes because it doesn't make sense for someone to pay tax to her own tax collection agency. But the prime minister at the time, John Major, he changed that, and he actually she's had to pay tax to herself, I guess, since the 1990s.
Oh, good. Here's another question or thought here. It says, is Bitcoin SV better than XRP? A lot of bankers in Europe use Bitcoin SV. Has Mario heard anything about Bitcoin SV?
Yeah, I heard about Bitcoin SV from
that video with David Morgan, John Perez.
Yeah, it's much faster than Bitcoin, and yeah, but I don't have any Bitcoin SV. And about XRP, I've heard that the Rothschilds own 70% of it. One of my friends said they watched a documentary and they said XRP is owned by the bankers.
Oh yeah, it was, to me, from day one, it was a banker's coin. And so it's just interesting to see how they put the XRP company through so much headache via the SEC and all those charges. And to me, that just literally keeping people in the US to be able to access it on exchanges normally, because they've been removed from all US exchanges. You got to go abroad to try to get some access to it. So
yeah,
I just question why
I'm
putting up such a fuss with that.
On getting my weight up.
Yeah.
Gold and silver.
And speaking of getting your weight up, here's an article of a state that might be looking to get rid of some of those debt instruments and get back into gold and silver. So Oklahoma to consider holding gold and silver, removing income taxes. So we'll see what plays out with that. HB 3681 by Representative Sean Roberts.
Oklahoma might be in the on the FBI's terror list. No income tax, precious metals.
Oh man, all right, let's keep it moving, man. So very interesting times, man. But feel free to throw out some thoughts or whatnot if you guys want. We can touch on it. And let me see what else I got here article wise, because I got did we cover everything? I think we got through everything. Here's the last article.
Did you hear there's another crypto conspiracy with a guy called Credence, David Morgan? Did you see that one? And he mentioned a guy, Boyd Anderson. That guy was really, and I listened to Boyd Anderson's video. It was a little bit too much for me, but some of it made sense.
No, I did not hear about. I heard about Boyd Anderson, but I didn't dive deeper into him.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some really wild theories about Bitcoin, that it was Elon Musk and Peter Thiel who were behind it. You know, the guys who started PayPal.
Right. Anything's possible. Definitely somebody.
It's one of the things I didn't really, that was always in the back of my mind, the fact that we don't know who really Satoshi Nakamoto is. And the counter argument is that, well, the code is really good because everyone's looked at it, but you never know. The person who wrote the code might have a back door to the system and could do something to it.
Right.
That's why I don't trust it.
Yeah, and so my suspicion is that it was designed to be a distraction to get people excited and introduce the idea of digital currency, digital money, whatever they want to call it, because there's been such a push by the billionaires to get people into it, while keeping gold and silver out of the mainstream news. And then I think when China initially for the last time decided to ban it, and everybody, all the miners left. To me, I wouldn't be surprised if China has the quantum technology to be able to disrupt it, because if they have they got some type of device that's I heard is 10 times or something stronger than the sun or something like that. So they have some technology, I think, that might be able to cause some problems with the whole decentralized encrypted stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if they've cracked the code and able to do it at any moment, but they want to let things play out. They don't need to kill it now, because they need an exit for all this currency as well to semi keep the dollar under control. So
Boyd Anderson, he notes that what you said there, they want everyone to get used to digital currencies and everything, and then when at one point they'll just pull the plug, and then they'll say, oh, we need to have a regulated digital currency market. And that's when they'll bring in the central bank digital currencies, which will be completely different, so to speak, than decentralized. But are cryptocurrencies really decentralized?
No.
There's a lot of big whales out there.
Right. And it happens to be the institution. So here's a question for those that are tuning in. Feel free. And I see Pay Me Money Bags, a thought out there. I'm going to get to that one second. So here's the thing. If they are able to disrupt and at some point in the future bring down Bitcoin, expose the code, double spend, crack private wallets or whatever, will that then destroy confidence in every other project, you think? So if they crack Bitcoin, which is labeled as the gold standard of everything, if the big whale goes down, will it impact the other coins and projects severely?
Well, I think so, because Bitcoin is the granddaddy, isn't it? If there's a problem with Bitcoin, it's going to hurt all the other altcoins.
Yeah. All right. So let me see. Let me pull this up here, and then let me get to that thought by Mr. Pay Me Money Bags. So I see you talk about the book for Boyd Anderson.
No, I think he's done a video as well, which I listened to.
Okay, I typed in
2
Boyd Anderson.
videos. Yeah, boy, you have to put those numbers on 537. Yeah.
Okay, let me see here. So here is what pops up on my side. Let me do. Here is something from Sean over SGT report. Give me 1 second here. So I'll probably try to find but here is when I typed in Boyd Anderson. I typed in Boyd Anderson 537-555. This is what comes up, a book.
The book, I haven't bought the book, but there's a video. He did an interview with someone, as if you click on video.
Okay, let me go back here. Here is video. Let me see what pops up.
Yeah, that one there, that 1 hour video under the radar.
I'll check this
out. That's what people should look into. That's quite interesting. And he goes through the whole his whole theory of things.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll pull that up, and then let me get to some questions over here real quick. Let me see. Scroll up.
Just a warning to people: it will really screw with your head. All the things it tells you about. You got to take it with a big chunk of salt, I would say. But it's interesting though.
Yeah. Pay Me Money Bags. Appreciate you, man. Says dollar. Reminder, if Congress has not put out any regulations on crypto in the US, IRS has no authority to make you pay tax on any crypto. This is law.
Yeah, that's unless you convert your crypto into Federal Reserve.
Back in the fiat.
But if you keep your crypto in crypto, yeah, they can't really tax you on it.
Right. And that's why, the trading and, getting back into fiat and all those other things, because they've come out with some more clearer information for the tax forms that's out right now. So the questions have become more specific. Last year was very vague. Now they're very specific with what they want to know. If you had any transaction whatsoever or whatever, put yes. So it's still that yes or no right now, but what is that leading to will be the next question.
And they were talking about, I don't know if it was Janet Yellen or the Biden administration in general, that they wanted to they were thinking about imposing capital gains tax on unrealized holdings.
Yeah.
So let's say if you're holding Bitcoin and you've never
done anything with it,
never put it into Federal Reserve notes, but you bought it let's say it was worth $10,000, and then now it's worth 100,000.
Hmm.
Are you still holding the Bitcoin? They could like say, "Oh, we're gonna tax you on that profit." So,
Yeah.
which is something, which is something really that would
Yeah.
be a
And that's the thing. Like, so it all boils down to compliance. Like, and that's one of the benefits of being involved in the digital asset space. For the people who have been in it for a while, there's a possibility of your information not actually being on the CyberTrace or any of those cryptocurrency tracking platforms. You might not be completely in their system as of yet, but everything done over the last year or two or so, they've definitely honed in on how they can track and trace you down to the very fine penny of where you're located, that type of thing as well. So that's interesting. But here's a thought from Mastermind. Says, I think the Fed raised rates 3 times in 2017. Bitcoin still rallied to 20K. Maybe investors will shake off the rate hike once it happens this year and everything rallies again. Yeah, anything's possible. I think a lot of the rallying is built upon the quantitative easing. And so the more accommodative policies the Fed has provided, the easier it makes those new funds to look for new places to park. So if no new currency is created and they're not supporting the economy, a lot of people are going to be selling stuff off to pay back some of these debts they're going to have to pay.
yeah.
So,
I think the other big question mark hanging over the whole crypto space, and I'm not saying this because I don't think I think that blockchain is no good or anything, but it's a Tether,
yeah.
because Tether provides a lot. They're like the Federal Reserve for cryptos, Tether,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they're not really one-to-one backed to the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's something people need to keep on the back of their minds. It's been out for over a year that they're not really. Uh, there's something fishy in Tether,
Yeah.
but right now people seem to put their heads in the sand, and the
And
event. It's a little bit like Madoff. I think a lot of people knew that Madoff was dodgy,
yeah.
but it kept going. But eventually,
And then on another note here, another way that they're utilizing. So at this point, I believe the Federal Reserve definitely likes having Tether as a pre USDC stable coin, Fed coin type of operation because the Strike app, they won't. So they're in Argentina as of now, but they're not using Bitcoin. They're using, guess what? Tether. So Argentinians are sitting on buku loads of dollars because that's been their version of gold. So I can see this Tether or this Strike app dealing with Tether as a way of helping get some of those dollars out of Argentina by putting them into Tether to help
yeah.
shore up Tether on the back end because they definitely would have some fresh dollars being
Well,
put into that system.
yeah, Argentinians would get screwed again.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
they got screwed in the early 90s, I think, because they were running a peso and dollar, or Austral, it was called, parallel currency.
Mm-hmm.
So the dollar and the Argentinian currency were like the same.
Yeah.
But then when the system collapsed, Citibank wouldn't give dollars to Argentinians. Thought they had dollars at Citibank
Mm-hmm.
Buenos Aires,
Yeah.
but it wasn't there. So this looks like I would be really careful if I was in Argentina
Right.
putting putting dollars into, or even having dollars, or having Tether or USDC, whatever it's called.
Right, right. So
Uh,
when I saw that, I contacted my friend down there and said, "Hey, man, don't fall for this trick, man. They're trying to get your dollars up out of your possession." Which, I understand how dollars are like basically gold to you guys. Don't get rid of your dollars on there because you're gonna. I mean, they're still of use in the meantime, but once you put them in an app, believe me, that's gonna help them, or it's gonna help you. So, but anyway, all right, man. So we coming down the home stretch, Mario. Let me see here. This is a question here. It says, what is the name of the video Mario named? I will find it and post a link. So it's right here. Let me put it on the screen here. Give me 1 second. It is under the radar 537-555 came out
yeah,
in 2018.
those numbers are important to put on, because if you just put under the radar, you probably won't get the video.
Right. So I'll actually put it in the chat right now so people can see it, and I'll definitely take a listen to it myself. But let's get ready to dial back. Mario, what are we looking forward to next week? We're drawing towards the end of January. Will there be any surprising or any news that you think should be coming around the way? Will we see gold and silver do some things next week, trending upwards? Because I saw a lot about the futures. I've heard several commentators talk about the COMEX and the Bank of America and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think gold and silver are looking good. We have another Fed meeting next week. I think it's the 24th and 25th.
Yeah.
I saw a headline saying they might say that they're going to raise rates in March next week. I guess keep an eye on, even though I think a lot of it is just an excuse or some kind of something to keep the public looking here instead of just this Ukrainian, Russia, U.S. Conflict that could escalate. I think
Yeah.
so. Those are the things really, and hopefully more good news here in the UK or especially England about all these restrictions
Yeah.
going away, the whole thing unraveling. Let's hope. But at the same time, you see other countries like Australia and Canada even getting really tough.
Right.
So who knows?
Right. And I like how, the resistance of more people waking up and pushing back and saying no appears to be growing stronger. And along with that, we can tell that there is a movement towards freedom because more censorship is occurring. More of the fact checkers are out talking about what's fake and what's not. And even with the Great Reset agenda, they're starting to fact check that now. So that lets us know that we were on point well before this fact check stuff came out. So yeah, be hopeful. Stay prayed up, get your weight up. Definitely, I think hell, anytime this year we're gonna see a breakout like never before. I think because it's gonna be hard for them to continue to talk good talk, but not actually do anything as far as what they're telling the markets they're going to do. So something has to break or give, or an event will occur. So yeah, like of course we're talking about food. I'm hearing more and more, seeing more pictures about empty food, more empty shelves on the store. So all those type of preparation type things, man, you want to be ahead of that stuff just in case, because you never know. So, but anyway, as everybody, appreciate you guys for joining us. Manico64 on YouTube, Rethinking the Dollar, wherever you can find us. Hit the thumbs up, show your support for the channel, and we'll be back at it again next week with more stuff to cover because it's going to be a very exciting year, to say the least. So, everybody, be blessed, be safe, have a great weekend. See you guys later. Peace.